Welcome to a Victim Bites Back special, looking amongst other things at the Traitors. The final has just happened. I don't know about you, but I've been glued to it. I've never watched it before, and I thought it was actually a very good series. One of the things I thought was most interesting about it was it showed how completely useless ordinary, decent, intelligent, fine, upstanding, kind members of the public are when it comes to actually telling the truth, making a judgment about others, and it shows how out of date the jury system is when ordinary people almost certainly every time get it wrong.
So I've just been to see The Brutalist, which is the last of the nominated Oscar-winning films, possible Best Pictures, that I think I need to catch. There may be a couple more. I've seen quite a few of them. Well, I thought The Brutalist was a good film. Not a great film, but a good film. In fact, for me, I'd give it 4 stars out of 5, as opposed to 4.5 stars out of 5 for, I would say, Wicked, Emilia Perez and Conclave, all of which I enjoyed more than I enjoyed The Brutalist, and I thought they were all very good films. For me, the best film that's nominated is A Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan biopic, which I thought was 5 stars out of 5. But that may well be because it was my era. I was in New York in 1963, 64 and 65. I knew those songs tremendously well. I have still to this day the most enormous adoration for Bob Dylan and his work. And I thought Timothy Chalamet gave a great performance as Bob Dylan, miles better than Adrian Brody's role in The Brutalist, I felt anyway. I thought Ralph Fiennes was very good in Conclave and could well be the winner of Best Actor. And I also thought there were various other very good performances in both Emilia Perez and in Wicked. But for me, the best film, I thought, so far, in case there's something else that may crop up before the awards in March, is A Complete Unknown and Timothy Chalamet the Best Actor. As for The Brutalist, yes, well worth seeing. It's very long, far too long in fact, and actually doesn't justify its length. But it amused me that finally, after whatever it is, 4 hours worth of movie, over the end credits is Jonathan King. Well, actually, it's not me. It's one of my hits, One for You, One for Me, which was a hit for me, I think, in 1978, which was a huge hit, actually, for me. Sold several million copies around the world, but it was actually, I think, a much better cover of an Italian record that wasn't that big a hit by a group called La Bionda. And over the final credits of The Brutalist is the La Bionda version of the song. I wish they'd used mine, actually. I could have done with the royalties. But it did amuse me as I was sitting there in the theatre to hear One for You, One for Me, which I did several times on Top of the Pops and various other shows, and was a big hit in certainly Great Britain and all over Europe, and even a small hit in other places. It was quite a big dance hit, actually, in the clubs at the time. Anyway, that amused me.
I'm looking forward next week to seeing Home Truths, the new Mike Leigh film. For me, Mike Leigh is the greatest British film director since Alfred Hitchcock, but that's just a personal thing. I'm rather sad to have left Marrakesh, where I was thoroughly enjoying myself. Here's my annual foot shot that I have every year. But back to England and grey, cloudy, rainy Great Britain.
The other thing we need to discuss over the past couple of weeks was the awful Stockport killings of those little girls and maiming of various other victims by the mad Loony, Axel, whatever his name is. I can't ever pronounce the surname. But what horrified me about that is humanity completely incapable of finding decency and kindness and sympathy for all victims of these lunatic situations, be it by countries or by governments or by individuals? Now, you see something like that, and anybody with any kind of sense feels it's awful what happened to those poor little girls, and feels incredible sympathy for the parents and for the friends and for even people who just casually knew them, and for outside observers who see it on the news and in the media and think, God, how ghastly. But awful things do happen, whether they be natural disasters, fires in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, wars in Gaza and Ukraine, tsunamis that may hit the world or whatever. These things do happen. They're tragedies. They wipe out loads of human beings. They're all awful. And I remember a year or a couple of years ago, Brianna Guy, remember that transgender girl who was murdered by 2 other kids? And it's appalling. And you see these things, you think, these are mad people. Why are people doing this? Why are people killing each other? But the other feeling one surely has to have is, how awful for the perpetrators, the people who do these things. Why do they do these things? Is it an illness, a sickness? Is it something like cancer that people get infected by? Is it some kind of possession by the devil, if there is a devil? Which I have to say, the Axel situation is very much like a small boy being possessed by some kind of evil spirit. It's awful, it's a nightmare. But why can't human beings think, yes, I can feel incredible sorrow and sympathy for the victims of these crimes, and also feel sad for the perpetrators who are victims of some sort of insanity or infection or possession or whatever, and feel that in some kind of decent kindness for humanity. They're human beings too, and it really does disturb me that people just don't think that way. And surely there is a solution that A, will help stop future events like that, B, will deal in a much more humane and decent way with people who do these mad things, and that is lunatic asylums. They can't, of course, these days be called lunatic asylums, and they never ought to have been called lunatic asylums, actually. Terrible names. But what they were secure hospitals, basically, that were really prison hospitals for the insane or those who needed treatment, needed to be looked after, possibly be kept in there forever, for all their lives, because they might do it again if they got out, but are well looked after, are well provided, give people good food, exercise, relaxation, so that they can read books or watch television or whatever, but keeps them away from society until and unless they're cured. Now, those were all closed down after the awful abuses, which always happens, of course, in the Victorian era and so on, and a lot of them no longer exist. Isn't Broadmoor exactly that? And surely isn't Broadmoor exactly where Axel Loony ought to be going? Not to a prison where I would have thought the other inmates would not be safe at all from someone who's that bonkers, but somewhere like Broadmoor where he can be kept away from society, we can be secure away from him, but also where he can be treated and perhaps cured, or unpossessed. I mean, it might need that he needs some kind of exorcism going on. I don't know what the situation is, apart from everything we read in the newspapers. It was appalling what happened. He's clearly completely bonkers. But why can't we as humanity feel some sympathy and kindness and decency towards him? I mean, we feel that way if somebody gets an illness like cancer. We want to look after them, try and make it better, as long as it doesn't affect the rest of society and cause more problems. It's just like my thoughts on the boat people. Stop those illegal boat crossings which kill people all the time by putting on legal ferries much cheaper that come into very secure ports and points. And I don't mind what happens then. That's for the government to decide whether people are then brought into sort of immigration centres that are equally secure and judged as to whether they can stay in the country or be exported back out again. But again, it seems to me a simple way of solving that problem. Why can't human beings think deeper than just simplistic solutions? See you next time.